Well, my friends, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men just don't work out. We've had this guitar in the shop really far too long. Caleb's been working on it and doing a nice job on working on the thing in terms of the finish and all that, and you know, restained the whole top, everything, really made it look nice, I think. And we thought we were doing the easy thing first by just applying a different bridge pad through the sound hole. Thought maybe that would be enough because the action isn't horrible, it's just it was on the edge, and we always try to do the simple thing first. Well, the simple thing didn't work, and so I am myself taking over the project, and I'm going to saw the back off of this. And it's kind of a shame because he had it finished real nice, and this is going to leave a little bit of a scar, but maybe we can touch it up and make it look okay. But you know, we tried to do the simple thing first, and it almost worked. We got that close. We were at about 110 thousandths on the action here, and you know, if it would have been 100, I'd probably said, okay, that's good enough. But 110, that just kind of pushes it over the edge. And so therefore, I'm taking the back off, and we're going to get in here and fix the real guts of this thing, because this is an important guitar to the customer. It was owned by his father, so it's got a lot of sentimental value, and that's, you know, the reason we're going to the extent that we are on a guitar like this. You know, it means different things to different people, and it means enough to the fella to go the extra step. So that's what we're doing. You've seen me use the technique of sawing the back off before. I've actually sawn it from the tail block to the neck block on both sides already. It leaves a very minor scar. The trick is that it's really difficult to get it sawn through the tail block and the neck block. So I mean, there's good things and bad things about this technique. And the bad thing is it's very difficult to get this sawn through. So I just take my time and I keep sawing. And I've got to be pretty close, because I know, you know, I don't think the block's too terribly big, and this saw is going in through the whole block area there pretty much now. I'm still hitting some resistance there, so I know I'm not completely all the way through. So I'm just going to keep monkeying with it like this, as you can see, until I get all the way through it. And that's all you can do. Once we get her opened up, we'll be able to fix the real problems with this. And we can also, when we glue it back together, make sure the neck angle is at the right angle too. So I'll show you when I make some more progress. This is your classic case of multitasking. I'm heating up this knife, trying to get in here under this neck block to get this neck off of this, while I'm also reviewing Caleb's next video over there. It's like, if I don't do all these things at the same time, they just don't get done. Well, this is what the inside looks like. Caleb had tried to put in a bridge plate in here. In addition, you can see the original had cracked in half, so I'm going to take all of this out, put one solid piece across here, and pretty much guarantee it'll never be a problem again. In addition, this brace is loose, I can tell, and I think I saw another brace loose through the sound hole earlier, and I'll be inspecting all the braces and making sure that they're all good too. But one way or the other, we're going to fix this thing and make it right forever. You can see I'm heating this up, and you can see how easily with the tight bond you can actually take it off very easy. I guarantee you these other braces won't come off as easy, and I'm sure they were glued with hide glue. So that's my point, is that hide glue falls loose on its own real easy, but often you can't take it apart with heat very easy, even though everybody says you can. I've had way more trouble with hide glue coming apart with heat than I have with tight bond. Tight bond comes apart very easy with heat. But it takes a lot of heat. I mean, like, it's not going to just come apart in your car, you know. It takes quite a bit of heat. I've got this heated up to around almost 400 degrees. And as soon as you heat it up like that, bingo, it comes right apart. No problem at all. It's not going to get that hot in your car, you know. Here's the end. I haven't even started under here yet. And with the exception of the fact that I can't hardly get my tool in there because I don't have space, but you can see it just slid right under there. But I can't get my tool in there is my problem. I don't have room to get it in there. I can get in from this side because I've got room, and I'm just working from this side because that's the easy way to do it. The tricky thing about this, again, you want to make sure you don't pry. You just want to slide it in there and don't pry so you don't bust the top. And I'm heating up the knife again. It's just, so in other words, this pad that Caleb put in there is almost out. And then we can start working on the rest of it. Okay, so you can see the part that Caleb put in there came out without any problem at all. Didn't create any tear out or anything. Now I've got to work on getting out this other mess that's in here. And I'll just start right there. The worst part of this is the kind that goes under the kerf, so I'm going to have to cut all that loose. So I'm going to take my scalpel here and try to cut the brace right there. Just squirt multiple times, not push too hard. Trying to control the knife pretty well so it doesn't slide across here and cut something I don't want to cut. Just go over it multiple times and you'll eventually get through it. I think I'm through, and I've started heating it there. I'm going to cut this side now. You won't be able to see because it'll be off camera, but okay, heat this up really good. Heat up my knife again, and I'll see if we can start getting the end of this brace up. It's coming. It'll come, I think, without too much trouble. Again, trying to do it without prying, just letting the knife slide under and lifting it up. Because if you pry, you're pretty much going to crack your top. That part's being really stubborn. I'm tempted to just carve it away, and I think I can probably get it off just as fast that way, so that's what I'm going to switch and do. I'm afraid I'm going to create a problem here. This is being so stubborn on this side. This is what I'm talking about with hide glue. You know, this part here came off fairly easy. This part here is being a real bear. And that's the difference between that and tight bind. Tight bind's very consistent. It comes off at about the same rate all the way across. The only negative of having to carve this off of here is just the sore hands. This makes it really hard for that. If it wasn't for the soreness in my hands, this would only be a few minute job. Yeah, I'll have to stop the camera here and I'll finish this up, and when I'm done with that, I'll show you what it looks like. Well, there you have it. It is out of there. I had to carve this last little bit, and in the truth be told, I can still scrape a little tiny bit more of this side over here, just like this, and get rid of a little bit more. But it's, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much out of there. And so now I'm going to clean this whole area up really, really well. And I'll cut a bridge plate that'll be quite a bit bigger, actually. And but I'll make it out of Paduke, so it'll be a real good tone wood. And we'll fix this thing up and fix it where it won't be pulling up anymore. As is often the case, this flat board that you can see has been clamped to this thing for several days, probably even a week, and I just haven't been able to get back to it. I just made myself a caul, or whatever you want to refer to it as, to put on the top board, so that when I replace this plate, I can try to keep everything flat. I can tell you that this top is still really warped, even with this flat board on there. So we'll just have to do the best we can. At least we can stabilize it and make it where it won't move much, and then we can set the neck angle when we put the back on it. At least I think we'll accomplish that. I wiped this down with acetone. This was a clean towel before I started, so you can see it really does take off a lot of coloring and stuff there. I don't know if it, honestly, if it really helps that much, but I figure it don't hurt, so that's why I do it. I'm going to just lay it in here and let it make the imprint of where the glue goes, and then I'll try to get the glue on that too, because I do want a good glue coverage on this. And that shows that it covered it pretty well, but there's a few places that it didn't get. So I'll spread it around with a brush. I think the clamp would have probably got that anyway, but now we know it's all 100% covered. So we'll lock this down, get a bunch of clamps on it. I'll show you what that looks like when I get her all clamped up. Well, I've only got 3 clamps on there, but this board here is really thick and the other back board here is fairly thick, so you know, I think it's doing a pretty good job. You can see there's squeeze out pretty much all the way across at fairly evenly even. So therefore, I would say that's pretty good. If I can find a way to get another clamp in between these clamps, I'm going to do it, but at the moment I'm not sure how I could do that. We'll see. I don't think I have anything with a long enough reach and a deep enough depth to get in there, and I don't think there's room to get anything more through the sound hole, because it's a small sound hole to begin with, and these 3 clamps are pretty much touching one another as it is. So we'll see if I can do any more. If I can, I'll show it to you. Otherwise, it's going to sit like it is. Well, I was able to get these other 2 big clamps on there. These are big, I think they're 6-inch clamps, yeah, from Harbor Freight. They've got a fairly good reach on them, depth-wise, and you know, I put some blocks of wood on the bottom side and some leather to protect the. It's actually on the bridge, but I put some leather and then a block and then this clamp on the other side that you can't see. And that squeezed out quite a bit more glue, and so to me, anytime you do that and you get that kind of result, it's worth doing. That ought to keep this thing pretty doggone solid and pretty darn flat too, because that really flattened it out with that big board there too. You know, it'll probably still have a little bit of a bow to it, but nothing like it had before, and that good Paduke wood being a good soundboard and strength-wise, it should do the trick. I'll feel real good about it. Plus all those cracks that were going down through there, that instantly cemented all those too. So those will be good too. It's been 24 hours or so since this was all glued up. So let's take it apart and see what we ended up with. I'll take off these big heavy ones first to keep from damaging anything, hopefully. Well, it created a little bit of a issue on the finish, unfortunately, but we'll just have to fix that back up. But I do think that top now is absolutely 100% solid. There's still a slight dome to this, which I think it was actually probably built into the guitar to begin with, which is fine with me, because we'll set the neck angle when we put the back on it. I need to clean up the extra glue squeeze out, and I'll do that probably with a chisel, although it's a little hard to get in here, but I think I can get it out. You can see there it pops off pretty good. So I'll get in there and clean all that up. I'll do that off camera. And then I think what I might do is do a little bit more cleating in a few places, and then we'll be putting this thing back together. What I did for a little added insurance is there was a couple of cracks here that I went ahead and put CA glue in from this side, and you know, then you can just scrape that off and you don't really see it, but yet it fills the crack really well. So you can see the difference there where I've cleaned it up and where I haven't yet. Technically no one's going to see this anyway, but it just is a good idea, I think, to clean up your messes like this. I think that looks pretty good. We're going to probably put the back on it now. I'm going to inspect the other part of the body and make sure it looks really good before I do that. If you look close enough, you can almost always find something. So I'm going to look real close before we put it back together. I've gone through the top and carved down all the little cleats I put in here also, and you can see I put in quite a few. This top has been really prone to breakage over the years. It's real obvious. And so I thought more is better in this case. So after I got that piece in there, which will really hold a lot, then I went in and put in all of these cleats and made them all uniform, and I think they're going to be just fine. I don't expect to have any further problem with it. Now I've created some damage to this by clamping those boards on here and all that. We'll have to fix all of that and clean that up after we get it all back together. But right now I'm going to turn my attention to these holes. They're all filled in with glue again after gluing all that together. So I'm going to work on that next. This hole's completely full of glue, so to keep myself from running off and making a mess here, I'm going to clean that off first. So here's, maybe I can, it's actually standing up proud, so I'm going to get a little bit of that down in there so the bit won't slide off of here and hit the top of this, because that would be my luck. A lot of glue in there. You know, folks, I have shown many times how I do this, and I generally start back here and glue it on up to the waist and clamp it up to the waist and leave this front part loose. That way I can flex it a little bit and tweak the neck angle and get it just right. In this particular case, however, because this heel extends up to the height of the back, there's not going to be much flex allowed. Plus, I might not even be able to get this down in there. You can glue this back here. See, like this is going to stand up. If you see what I'm saying, this is standing up proud, and it's kind of hard to glue all this and then push this down and make this be a tight joint. So I've never done it this way before, to be perfectly honest, but I think it should work, and I've kind of done a dry run here and it seems like it should work. But I'm going to do it backwards this time. I'm going to start up here, make this joint tight, make all this tight up to about the waist, get all that glued in first, and then I'm going to set the neck angle by moving the back in this case. At least that's the theory. Yeah, we'll see if it works. I think it will. And in the dry run here that I just did kind of off camera, it seemed like it would work. But we will find out when we do the real thing. So here we go. Well, I believe I've gathered the essentials. I've got a little bit of water here that you can barely see off camera there. And I've got my Titebond original. I've got my paintbrush. And I've taken 8 of my spool clamps and adjusted them to the approximate thickness of this here, or the depth, or whatever you want to refer to that as. So, you know, dry fitting, this all feels really, really good. So I'm just gonna go for it. Let's just see what happens. It'll either work or you'll see a grown man crying. It's been about 4 days since I clamped up the back on this. You can see that I just removed the spool clamps, and the leather more or less stuck to that finish, which is admittedly a little bit of a green finish, although it's at least a month old, I'm sure. But anyway, that just made my day this morning, so I've got to get that all buffed out and fixed up, and may have to refinish the whole thing the way it's looking. I've got some 1200 here, and I'm trying to buff those out a little bit. Just one more thing, you know, refinish an instrument. It's easy, sure it is, sure it is, sure it is. Of course, you know, you could be saying, well, you should have done this before. Well, like I said, we always try to do the easy thing first, and in this particular case, we thought we had enough to work with that we would be able to get the neck angle right, but we were wrong. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It was our best guess, and our best guess was wrong this time. Most of the time we do okay, but this time we didn't. So there you go. Anyway, this 1200 seems to be cleaning it up. As long as I don't sand through, I should be able to buff it back out, I hope. And again, it's just my best guess again. That's what I think. I hope it will work. If not, we'll be doing some more finish work. Oh well, I'll show you what it looks like when I get her cleaned up. You can see what I'm doing. I'm going to sand it like this, and then I'm going to buff it and see if we can make it look good. Looks like something happened right here and here too. Those were clamps also with leather. Yeah, that's not fun. Oh well. Well, I have to admit, it's the ugly duckling thing again. It has to go through a stage here where it looks worse before it starts to look better again. But I think it's going to work out okay. I don't know. I'll probably have to touch up some finish. I'm not sure about that yet. But I've got it sanded down. It's going to need to be buffed out yet. But right now, at least it's sanded. I've clamped the back down to the tail block there, just to kind of give me a ballpark figure to see, you know, just kind of see where we are in relationship from the neck to the bridge. And it ain't good. I would like to see that up pretty good amount, so that's not good. We're going to have to really pull the neck down some, which means we're probably going to end up cutting off some of the back because it's going to stick out past the back of the guitar. But if we have to cut something off, that's the best part to cut off because that's worn pretty much along the back edge here. So I don't know. Bummer. I was really hoping just by, you know, flattening this area out, getting a good bridge plate, that would have fixed some of the problem, but honestly it doesn't appear to have helped it any. I would say we're about, I don't know, 64th or 32nd, somewhere in there below the bridge. Not very much, just a tiny, tiny amount. But I would like to be twice that much above the bridge. So we're, in all, probably an 1/8 inch off, if not a little more than that off. You know, on the angle. I'd like to see it come up quite a bit here. Well, ain't nothing to it except to do it, and I guess we're just gonna have to start bending this and clamping it down and seeing where it lands. And it's pretty much trial and error to just see how it lands here. I'm gonna do it all dry, of course, and try to get myself some kind of a measurement back here of how far this needs to extend past before I put glue on here. And then when I get it glued up, I'll try to match that measurement so that we get the angle right. It's not going to be an easy one, I don't think. As I mentioned before, I've never done it this way. I usually change the angle from the front, not from the back. But I'm sure it can be done. It's just a matter of figuring it out. I'll show you what it looks like once I get it figured out. Well, I don't know if it's just cursed or what, but something's going wrong here. I've got the neck held down, I got the padding under here and stuff, and you know, just holding the neck down like so, just to make it stable. The pad under the guitar there, when I push down on the back like this, and maybe you can see it going down, I was expecting that would drop this down and we'd be perfect. But when I put the straight edge on the neck and I pull down, you can see the straight edge is still touching the bridge. It's not changing it hardly at all, if any. And yet the back is going past the back end of the guitar here by quite a bit. So, all that to say is it ain't working, and it's not working really at all. At all. I really thought we had a decent plan here, but I don't think so now. Kind of concerned now. I have a feeling this may be a neck reset, whether I want to do a neck reset or not, in addition to all the other stuff we've done on this thing. I mean, I'm glad I took the back off because there was a lot of problems there, and we fixed all those problems. But wow, I just really thought we'd be able to push this down and make a huge difference, and honestly it's not making any difference. That's the difference between connecting it to the front and connecting it to the back, I guess. But I really needed to connect it to the front because of this neck heel on this thing, because I knew it would be ugly if I didn't. I'm at the point now where I think I'm just going to glue the back on it the way it is and just cut my losses and do a neck reset, call it good. I know this guitar means a lot to the man, and he wants it fixed right. And you know, the things we've done to it, you could say that, you know, it was all a comedy of screw-ups. It's not, because every single thing we've done needed to be done. You know, it just was in a world of hurt when it got here. I mean, this thing was in super, super bad shape. The only thing that I regret is having refinished it before we did this super heavy work, but again, we thought we were going to be able to do it without doing all this heavy work. Really did. I'm not just saying that. I mean, we really thought we could make it work. And it doesn't appear like that's the case at all. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to make it work at all. I'm going to, just in case this jig is tricking me here, I'm going to try to do it out of this jig in case this somehow is putting some weird stress on the neck that I'm not understanding. I'm going to try to hold it and tweak it and see if I get the same result. But if I do get the same result, then I think we're headed toward a neck reset. So here we go. Well, I tried the other approach. I tried, you know, putting like pressure on the back of this heel to push this up while Caleb was putting clamps on the back there, and I think you can see the clamps are back here. And the back is actually physically extended beyond the sides back here about almost a quarter inch. And it made zero difference here. Zero. Didn't make any difference at all. I really did not expect that result at all. And I have to be honest, that one floors me. I seriously thought it would be no problem to do it this way. I've done it from the front many times and never had a problem. Many times. And I didn't think doing it from the back would be much different. But I can tell you it's, so far, at least in this case, significantly different. So I'm going to cut my losses and just go ahead and glue the back on this thing the best I can. Then the next thing I'll do is a neck reset. Okay, so I've just decided that I'm going to cut my losses, just bite the bullet here and get the back glued back on this thing, and then I'm going to end up taking the neck off because honestly, I don't know any other way to do it. I really thought we'd get lucky and be able to set the neck when we took the back off. And we probably could have if I'd have put it on in my normal way of doing it, but I figured doing it from the back would work just as well. Obviously, I figured that one wrong. I'm painting this in here so that it doesn't run all over the place. I'm just putting enough in here that I can paint it around. I can see that I'm getting good full coverage there, at least on one surface. And then I'll start around on this side and do the same thing. Looks like real good coverage to me, so the only place that I wouldn't have got coverage would have been right there where that wedge was, so I'll just stick it in there and move it around a little bit and it'll be fine. Now the only real hard thing to do is to get it all lined up right. You would think it would line up very easy, but that's not always the case. Sometimes this is very difficult to get the edges lined back up with the back. There's going to be a lot more squeeze out, but I want to clean up what I've got first before I get started, because the stuff starts to dry pretty quickly, so you want to clean it up as you go, otherwise you'll have more difficult time later. Plus, wetting that down will keep it from drying out a little bit more and give me a little more time. So I'm just going to start someplace, and like right here looks like a good place to me, so here I go. Okay, I'm going to stop on that side and do the same thing on this side up to that point. I think it works better when you stay a little bit more symmetrical than just going from one side all the way around. This side, I have to reach in and push the side out because it does not want to line up right. In fact, I think I'm going to have my able-bodied assistant come and tighten the clamp down, because at least I think I will. Yep, I better. That's good. Yeah, that one did not want to line up, but I think we got it. And the rest of it feels like it's probably okay now. We're doing pretty well actually, so now I think I'm going to go ahead and get the back end lined up and clamped. And I think the rest of it looks like it's going to line up okay once I get this part clamped. Sometimes it's much harder to clamp these things than it should be. Well, I thought I had enough clamps here, but I don't, so I'll get a couple more. Well, there's a good look at it all clamped up. It lined up pretty darn well, actually. You know, when you take these things apart, you rarely ever get them perfect back together. This is definitely not perfect, but it's close. It's pretty good. It's about as good as you can do with something like this. You would think they'd line up just easy and be no problem, but you would be wrong on that because they just never do. It's the next morning. I just took the clamps off, so the body now is back together. This thing is good and solid now. The body is really 100%. Of course, the same flaws there with the leather sticking to the finish, so I got to fix all that. Now let's just see if some magical fairies came into the shop last night and fixed the neck angle for me. And I haven't checked it yet, but I'm pretty sure they didn't. And I'm right, they didn't. It's still hitting the thing, and it's about a 1/16 of an inch below there, and it needs to be a 1/16 of an inch above there. And it's just, you know, some people would probably say, oh, just let it go, but at this point I don't think I can. I'm gonna have to just do a neck reset, and because we've already tried setting this thing up and it just doesn't play right the way it is. So here I go. So in preparation to take the neck off, first thing I'm going to do is remove this fret right here, and I'm wetting it down to soften the wood to hopefully slow the chipping out a little bit. And some folks might say, well, this is swelling the wood up and you're making it harder to get the fret out, but really wood doesn't swell lengthwise. It only swells widthwise and out this way. The length doesn't change at all when you wet it down, at least not enough that it matters. And this softens the fibers to the point where they just aren't so brittle and they don't break so easy when you pull the wire out. At least that's my experience, and I've been doing this a very long time, so that's the way I choose to do it. Some people say heating it helps. I haven't found much help in the heat, so I don't bother with the heat. The other thing you try to do is keep the pliers right against the wood as you're lifting the fret. That also helps minimize the tear out, and you can see there's no tear out at all. Now if we're lucky and that slot lines up with that fret, we'll be able to get some water down in there, moisture down in there, and heat down in there, and loosen up this neck. But we'll have to drill some holes here first before we can do that. Well, I forgot to turn the camera on the first one, but I hit the pocket perfectly. As you can see, it just drops right down in the hole. Just perfect. You couldn't ask for anything more. Let's see if we get lucky and do it again. You can see it just dropped right in. Yeah, you can't really do any better than that. That's as good as it gets on that kind of thing. Okay, well, now I'm going to start heating up this and see if we can get this loose first, and then we'll start working on getting down inside the neck pocket there. So you can see I've got my heating tool set on there. I haven't turned it on yet, but this is computer controlled, and it keeps the temperature at a fairly constant temp. It's set for around 420, I think, something like that. Yep, 420, that's what it's set for. And you can see right now it's it's like at 74 degrees, and that's just room temperature, so it'll eventually start moving up there. And you can see there's a couple of tenths. It's going up. It just jumped up to 76, so it's moving now, 77. It won't take it very long. In fact, as it starts to heat up, it'll start going even faster. It'll only take it about 3 or 4 minutes to get up to full temperature. Now I've also plugged in our little knife heater. It's just a little oven, and I'm going to set the knives in here, and I just turned it on, so it's not hot yet. But by the time this gets up to temperature, and you can see it's moving pretty fast, 250 degrees already, this will be up to temperature, you know, pretty fast also. Doesn't take very long. I'm not sure it's going to help, but I'm going to put a little tape down here to try to avoid too much damage to the finish. I'm not putting it right against the very end of the fretboard, but within a, you know, less than 1/8 of an inch away. You got to have a little room to get your knife started under there. But hopefully that'll help minimize any damage. This towel is just there to keep the handle upright, so it sits pretty upright anyway, but that's just in case it wants to fall. We're up to 400 degrees already. Just took a couple of minutes. It doesn't take long at all. The oven here is up over 200 already, so it just doesn't take very long. The only part that can take long is doing the actual work. And you just never know if you're going to get lucky or if you're going to have trouble. And it's really hard to say until you start. And didn't really feel much give right there on that one, so we'll keep the knife heating. Starting to go under there a little bit. I've already made a little bit of progress off camera. I've started on both sides and it goes under there, so I'm going to try here in the middle yet. I haven't tried the middle. Not too bad. Got it in under there. I think it's trying to dig down under the wood here. It's what I'm afraid of. Honestly, I think it's digging down like that, you know, going at an angle. I'm exaggerating it, but I think that's what it's doing on this side especially. That's not good. I think that's as loose as I'm going to get it, so I'm going to call that good enough for right now. As you can see, I've got the hot plate here. I've got my tea kettle on. I used to use this for years. I used it for a long time, and this seal up here was no good. So what I did was I actually machined an aluminum seal and strapped on the hose. And you know, Caleb's actually used it more than I have, but he says it works great, and he says that this seals it up really tight and it really forces the steam through here now. So this is only probably my second time even trying it since I fixed it, and it was so long ago the last time I don't remember. This is a inflation needle for like a basketball or football or something is really all it is. And but it fits the little holes that we drill, and so it'll force the steam down in there. Once the steam starts coming out, and it'll take it a little while to heat this up. I've got it on, this hot plate has a hot side and a medium side, and I've got it on the high power side, and I've got it turned all the way up. And I'm just checking here under the carpet, making sure there's no heat. There's no heat under there at all, so it should be fine. And I'll start watching for the steam to start moving, and when it does, I'll turn the camera back on. Okay, the water's been boiling about 2 minutes or so, and it's just starting to get up to temperature. You can see this, you can probably see steams coming out of the needle now. So we're going to insert the needle down in here. And it's starting to blow through the tube, and the tube is getting pretty darn hot. And it's blowing steam through there pretty good. In fact, I can see steam coming out already back here, and that's really hot back here, believe it or not. That's crazy. I never thought it would be that quick and be that hot. Oh my gosh. That's really hot right back here, believe it or not. Yeah, it's really working way better than it ever worked before. So, with that in mind, I might be able to start rocking this a little bit and getting a little movement. Very little movement right now. There's actually steam coming out this hole here, and it's so hot it'll burn your finger, I can tell you that. So it's working. Haven't seen anything happening in the joint itself yet, wouldn't you know? And some of you will say, what about the dry method, the dry heater method? We've tried that and we're not real happy with that method. This seems to work much better for us. I'm going to just take and cut along the seam here with my X-Acto knife. I think it's already got a little break to it anyway, but just to play it safe. This hot plate turns off and on, so right at the moment it's not steaming real hard, but it's still pretty warm. I really am not seeing anything loosening up in the neck yet. I'm starting to feel maybe just a tiny amount of play. But barely any, honestly. There, we're starting to see a little bit now. It's actually starting to move a little bit now. Just kind of broke loose all at once there. You can see the steam puffing out of that hole. Just checking on the inside. I don't feel any moisture on the inside yet or anything. Nothing that I can see or feel. But I am starting to get a little bit of movement now. It's not real loose or anything. Yeah, this one's going to be a tough one. As usual, whenever I have to do them, they seem like they always have to be pretty tough. It's not... There, it just finally moved a whole bunch more, it seems like. Still, a whole bunch more is not much. Just on the scale here, just so you understand. But it did move. Yeah, it's moving now, finally. And I can actually see the seam opened up along the neck now, where I couldn't before. Still don't see much of a seam on this side. There it is. It's starting to be a little moist now. Alright, so now that we're getting some movement, maybe I can put my press on here and press it out. I just turned the hot plate back on and I just inserted this. You can see I've got the press on here, and basically the press is very simple. You just tighten these bolts up and it lifts the heel of the neck. down there, and it starts picking it up. And you know, you got to be a little careful. You don't want to break something, so it's better to have the hot steam working in there and getting things loosened up as you're doing this. Wiggle it a little bit like so. Tighten it up a little bit, and it'll eventually push it out of there, I think. There it's going. It's really wiggling now. Wow, it just loosened up a whole lot. I have a feeling I can just lift it out of there now. Yeah, it's coming now. There you go. And we'll turn off the hot plate. And you can kind of see there how the needle was inserted right in that crack. I think you can see it if the lighting's good enough. So, and it came out, you can see, with it really had any damage at all. Now the only negative of this process is that you really need to let this sit and dry for a couple of days, really, before you start messing with it. So I'm going to let this dry and make sure that it's really thoroughly dry before we start messing with it any further. I'll wipe up the moisture as best I can, of course, and then just let her dry and sit. You know, every time you take one of these things apart, you learn something. And I learned I've been slacking off on building my instruments. I haven't been putting in designer dovetail slots. See, look at there. There's a designer dovetail slot, if you see what I'm talking about. The back is not flat. It's actually got a V in it. I would call that a designer dovetail. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm not exactly sure what that accomplished, other than it did make a nice big pocket to take the neck out. It did do that, so maybe that was the purpose. I don't know. But anyway, it came out really, really nice. I couldn't have asked for much more on the way it came out. You know, it was about as easy as one of those kinds of jobs goes, I think. So anyway, we'll let it sit and dry for a couple of days. It's pretty wet and sticky right now. And then we're going to clean up all the old glue with chisels and stuff, and then we'll get to setting that neck angle to the proper angle. Well, this little guitar's been drying for a couple of days, you know, after soaking it down real good there to get the neck out. So the next step for me is to clean it all up, get rid of the old hide glue and stuff that was stuck everywhere. And I'm not going to show a whole lot of that, but essentially it just you know, you're just going around and you're just scraping all the wood surfaces. And I'll possibly use this X-Acto knife. I'll use chisels. Might even get the finger plane out if I need it. Just anything and everything that's got a blade that can get rid of old glue and clean up the surfaces. So like I said, I'm going to do 90% of that off camera, and then I'll show you my next step. Well, as I'm cleaning this guitar up, I noticed already they have a shim in here, and it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't done at the factory. It more than likely, though, it was done later, but you never know. It's in here, you can possibly see it. It's this white piece of wood glued to the mahogany. I'm going to go ahead and take it out because I would rather start at a fresh, you know, cut here and put in my own shims, and you know, because I've got to get this angle just right, and I don't want to put shims on top of shims, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to get all that cut out of there, and then we'll just about be ready to start fresh.